Hello, and welcome back to my Little Book Love podcast, where we talk about upcoming books, unpopular opinions, and useless info. I'm your host, Miko Books, and today we have some big topics to cover. I know banning books is really big right now. A lot of places are banning books. I know a big state for that right now is Florida, if you're in the US. And I think that one thing that would be really interesting to talk about today and to discuss is YA books. If you don't know what YA stands for, it stands for young adult. There's also NA books, which are new adult, and then there's adult. And these books are broken up this way and classified this way based on the age of the characters and the content in the books. So, something really interesting that I noticed recently was I went to a bookstore not far from my house and I was browsing through. I look at the romance, I look at the adult, I look at the sci-fi fantasy. I make my way over to the YA because I love a good YA book, right? So I'm going through and I notice the book My Fault by Mercedes Ron, which, if you don't know what that's about, let me just read the back to you real quick. Here's what it says. 17-year-old Noah Morgan lives a quiet, normal life with her mother in Toronto until her mother meets and marries William Leister, a wealthy lawyer from California. Noah finds herself moving to LA, leaving her volleyball team, her best friend, and her boyfriend behind. Upon arriving in her new life of private schools and pool parties, she meets her new brother, Nicholas, a college student and seemingly the typical spoiled rich kid. Noah has no desire to get along with them, especially when she discovers Nick's secret life of car racing and street fights, which is crazy. Not to mention, Noah has her own demons on her tail and doesn't want Nick's nose in any of them. But what the two of them don't account for is the powerful physical attraction between them, enough to turn their world upside down. Can love conquer the dark side of these LA streets, or will Nick and Noah be swallowed by the dark things between them? That sounds like a wild book. It's by Mercedes Ron. I mean, I've read it. It's pretty interesting, but it's adult. It is not in any way a YA book. So I go to my bookstore, it's on the shelf there. I'm kind of like, there's no way they put this here in the YA section. But then I look on the book spine and it says, like, Bloom, young adult. So even on the book, it says young adult. And obviously, the first words of the back of the book are talking about how she's 17. So I think that can be very misleading. And maybe that was seen and they were like, okay, it's YA. So I was like, okay, probably an accident. I go talk to the owner, not the owner, I go talk to the workers and I'm kind of like, hey, I don't know if you guys have read this book, My Fault, but it's over in the YA section and it involves like step sibling romance. No, very much not a YA topic, right? And they were kind of like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. I didn't even know that's what that was about. But when they send us the books, like they tell us where they need to go, like how they need to be categorized, and we put them where they say. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. And I was like, maybe they'll say something about it, or maybe something will change, or maybe they'll like later in the day they'll read it and they'll be like, there's no way we can keep it here in the YA. So I feel like I've done my due diligence. I've been like, this is kind of weird to have in the YA section. And I leave. I come back maybe a couple weeks later, it's still there. And I'm like, well, it's obviously not because they don't know it, because I've like told them. And like there were 3 workers there that day and we were all talking about it and they were like, it's so crazy that it's there if that's what it's about. And I'm like, yeah, that is crazy. But like they can't change it. You know what I mean? It's a Bookland, which is actually what, Books a Million? But the spine of the book says YA. It says young adult. So it's so misleading. And that kind of brings me to this that I want to talk about today. So the way that YA is like classified. So Indie Author Magazine says in YA, protagonists tend to be on the younger side. They are typically aged between 15 and 18 years old. NA, or New Adult, on the other hand, skews slightly older, so the protagonists usually range from 18 to 25 and in some cases up to 30 years old. Very interesting. just the way that things are classified there and kind of divided up. When you think young adult, though, are you thinking up to 18? I mean, adult is 18. So young adult is like, okay, you're younger than 18. Cool. I think there is a weird divide. I've seen some stores even start shifting over into this. They'll put like middle grade or teen. They'll have like a teen section and then a YA, which I think is a great way to do that because the teen section could have the younger books, like, and maybe YA, if we are going to age that up and make it more mature content, it could have, some kind of, it has adult in the title. So you could assume it's more, even young adult, it has adult in the title, right? So you want to be careful. But as a kid growing up, YA was, I mean, it was like Twilight. It wasn't like My Fault, which Twilight has some like risque stuff, but I do think it's different. Just a step sibling romance, in my opinion, is not young adult content. This is so crazy though, because you think about the things that, like, I'm in my late 20s. You think about the things that you read growing up, and you're like, man, it's crazy I was reading those things at like 12 years old. But when you're at that age, you don't really feel like it's crazy. Like, you're used to reading it. I was reading Nora Roberts maybe at like 15, or 13. And I was reading Twilight, and I was reading, and what else was I reading? The Morganville Vampire series and just things like that. I wasn't really interested in step sibling romances, but if I had access to them, yeah, I'd probably read them. You know what I mean? Because you're a kid, and if you like romance, it's like this weird thrill, and your parents don't know what you're reading. But also, we have a duty to protect the youth, I think. And I'm not saying we should ban books because, like I said, banning books has been very popular as of late. And I mean, books have been banned for hundreds of years, thousands, whatever. However long books have been written, they've been banned. And I don't think that censorship is the answer. I think maybe if there was a way, I know some libraries have already started doing this where they have like the younger adult stuff on the bottom floor and then adult on the top. If there's a way that we can help protect the population without censoring for everyone or banning things. This is also very interesting. I don't know if you all have read the book Speak. It's I think it is a YA book, and it's won awards. I don't want to say the author's name wrong, but it's Laurie Halse Anderson, and I've probably butchered that, but it's a National Book Award finalist, and it's about a girl that was traumatized by a rape, and then she's isolated by her peers. And so she starts ditching class and just getting in trouble and self harming. And I read that as a teen. So I do think there are YA books that are meant to educate and help, or like just kind of a thing to put out there that's a deeper topic. And I think it would be wrong of me to say we shouldn't be letting our youth read these things when I was reading stuff like that at that age, and I don't feel like it had any negative effects on me. I think it's very eye opening. And that book is, and it's such a strong book. It's such a powerful story, and I think we would be doing injustice to to ban books and take the possibility of reading away. But I also think maybe when I was growing up, my parents were monitoring what I read mostly. Like if I was reading Twilight, they were figuring out what Twilight was, and they were like getting in the know about it. And I mean, not really given permission, but they at least were aware. And I think that's something parents have to be aware what their children are reading. And then also, like, giving them morals and values and a belief system so that they know what they stand for and what they believe in. And like, I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter growing up. And I know my parents would probably die if they knew the kind of like world building, magical books that I'm reading now. But I do think it's up to the parents to monitor, and they can put a limit on what their kids take in. Like, I didn't watch Harry Potter. I still haven't watched it because to this day I just really don't want to. But I think a lot of people that are talking about banning books and things like that need to be aware that there's a lot more parent involvement that needs to be had instead of everyone banning every book for every kid. Like if it's something you don't want your kid reading about, or it's something that goes against things that you think, then maybe don't let your kid read it, right? Okay, let's keep going though. So we were talking about, what are your all's thoughts on YA and NA and adult? Where's the divide there? Here's my thought. I kind of brought this up. I think there should be a teen section and then a young adult section. So teen could be like, I don't know, like you could even go 12 to 15 or something, and then young adult could be like 16 to 18, and then new adult should be, or you know what, young adult could go from like 16 to even 19, and then new adult should be like what, 20 to all the way up to however far you want to go. I think we need concrete rules and concrete divides there because it's getting too skewed. I don't like seeing My Fault in the YA section. It's a good book. It has a place in the store, but I don't think it's with the like younger children things, you know? It's just my take on it. I don't know. Maybe it'll be different. If I had children, I think it'd be different as well, but right now it's more just kind of a, I feel like they're not educated on how things need to be. Just because the character is 17 doesn't mean that the story is for like a teenager. Okay. Let's move from that to spice in books. How much spice do you think you can put in a YA book? I'm going to give you a minute to think about this. There's no right or wrong answer. I mean I'm sure there is, but it honestly just depends on your personal thoughts. So how much spice do you think you should be able to put in a YA book? And keep in mind, if we go by what the internet says, young adult books are intended for target audiences from 12 to 18. So, how much spice would you put in a book for a 12 to 18-year-old? Honestly, my thought on this is none. I don't feel like spice has a place in the young adult setting. And I know that, like I said, I read Twilight and I was reading it for the plot, I guess, but also the love story. Like, I loved Edward and Bella. And I used to like flip through and read like the spicy scenes. Because, what, like I said, when you're a kid, everything is new. And like, that's like crazy seeing that in a book. But how much spice is okay? I think if we are going to make everything so fluid and blend the categories together and like there's not really a divide between things, we really have to be careful. I am a big believer in the fact that I don't it just changes your opinions on things, I think. And this is crazy because I'm a woman and I'm like, do what you want to do, but also it sets these expectations for us that aren't always realistic, or that, and I know a lot of men get hate for saying that like romance gives women like unrealistic expectations, and yeah, they deserve that hate. I feel like it's wrong for a man to say that, because I mean, they're just, that's a cop out to them, right? Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that sometimes we read these books and the expectations are not exactly reachable by the general population. But I'm not saying there aren't people that can reach those expectations. But, you know, let's go back to the spice. I'm getting on a tangent here. I think that if it's a young adult book, I really don't think there should be spice in it. I think there could be hand holding. I think there could be like a yearning described, but I do not think there should be any kind of like, I mean, obviously no sex, right? Like no flat out. But okay, was Twilight a young adult book? Because I know, let's see. I'm going to Google it real quick. Is Twilight young adult? Yeah, it's considered young adult. There is spice. So, this is like my main reference to, like this is what I read as a teen. So I think it's very interesting. I know Breaking Dawn gets pretty spicy. I really don't think that Twilight spicy is the level of spicy that we're getting today in books. Like in comparison, it's so mild, it's like non existent. It's very interesting. So, something to think about this week. I think It needs to be in our mind, the fact that people are banning books and the fact that people are censoring things. And the Hunger Games, like, obviously there's violence in it, but it's dystopian, it's fantasy, it's fiction. Why would we ban that? So I think that there's obviously things that are happening that we need to be aware about. In the same respect, have you guys ever noticed how many people are on the New York Times best-selling list, or how many people are a New York Times bestseller? I looked this up this week because I was super interested to see, like, how do you even get on the list and why has everyone been on it? So here's what I looked up. To be a New York Times bestseller, a book must sell a minimum of 5,000 copies in a single week across multiple retailers and geographical locations. The exact number of copies required depends on the list and the level of competition and can range from 5,000 to 10,000. For example, nonfiction lists are usually more competitive and may require 7,500 copies or more. The median sales for fiction books are between 4,000 and 8,000 copies per week, while nonfiction books typically sell between 2,000 and 6,000. That's very interesting. So, I don't know if you keep up with the New York Times bestseller list. Let's see who's on it this week. Okay, so I know people that stay on it, I'm guessing, are like Colleen Hoover and Rebecca Yarros. Let's see. Number one this week, The Blackbird Oracle by Deborah Harkness, the fifth book in the All Souls series. Diana faces her family's dark past and determines to forge a different future. That's very interesting. Um, Number two, we have The Women by Kristen Hanna. In 1965, a nursing student follows her brother to serve during the Vietnam War and returns to a divided America. Oh, you know what that kind of sounds like? Divine Rivals. That's crazy that I'm even making that comparison because I'm sure it's like such a work of art and so beautiful, but Divine Rivals is pretty good too. Let's keep going. Number three, we have Colleen Hoover with It Ends With Us. So, a battered wife raised in a violent home attempts to halt the cycle of abuse. Number four, oh wow, Colleen's It Ends With Us has been on for 130 weeks. And that's crazy. Do you know also how you stay on this list is by continuing to sell a large amount of books? Crazy. Okay, so 130 weeks is insane. And the movie's not even out yet. So I'm sure it'll be even more. That's wild. Number four, The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Trouble surfaces when a woman looking to make a fresh start takes a job in the home of the Winchesters. That book was so good. It's so weird to see how many books I've read that are on this. The Housemaid, I don't know. I feel like I posted a review on Instagram, but it was just such a good book. It was maybe my first thriller that I've read in a while, and it was so unexpected, and the twists were crazy. And I'm sure I've seen people be like, "Yeah, it was predictable," but the audio was really good for it, and it was just something like interesting to go through. That's been on the list for 54 weeks, and that's awesome. A Court of Thorns and Roses is number five, and that's Sarah J. Maas, and it's been on for 15 weeks, which is very surprising. I feel like it should have been on for longer. That's, I mean, Sarah J. Maas is huge. This week's episode was going to be A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I want to save that one for when I have someone to kind of like talk about it with, because I don't feel like my takes are as hot as I think they are. I do want to say though, I'm very surprised. So the Dusty Shop is doing these kind of overlays for A Court of Thorns and Roses, and they have this artist, and it's awesome. Like what they have so far, you can go to their Instagram and they've tagged him, and the art is awesome. They have. I'm pretty sure it's the final reveal. It's 14 out of 14, and it's when Rhysand shows Feyre his wings for the first time, and that one is just so awesome, awesomely done. But also his feet are so weird. Like, when I think about Rhysand shifting, I don't think about the fact that he shifts like he gets talons on his fingers or that he gets talons on his toes. But then, like, I read through the book the other day. I was doing the graphic audio re listen, which is always so fun. But the book, let's see, I have it written down here because I referenced it in my book and I was like, there's no way. So if you have your book in front of you, go to page 342 of ACOTAR. You can that's from the hardcover. I don't know if it's different in different prints, but if you want to follow along, it says, "Not a full shift, you see," Rhysand said, clicking the black razor-sharp talons that had replaced his fingers. Below the knees, darkness stained his skin, but talons also gleamed in lieu of toes. Did you guys know that? Like, instead of toes, he had talons. That's so gross. I don't know why. And he's everybody's book boyfriend. Like, come on, guys. We have to raise the bar. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not shaming anybody. But it's just so, like, I think about bat feet. A couple weeks ago, we had a bat in the yard. My cat had, like, knocked it down or something. And she, like, it was okay. And, I mean, she doesn't have rabies or anything. So we took the cat away from it and we, like, put it up in a little tree. And the next morning it was gone. But not because the cat went back and got it, because the cat was in the house for the night just to make sure the bat was okay. But the bat, like, took his little tiny feet and he clung onto a branch and we lifted him like that into the tree. And it's kind of gross to think about. Like, Resand has little feet like that. I don't know. That picture does a really good job of showing it. But going back to book boyfriends, like, what are your all's requirement? How high is our bar for book boyfriends? Like, are these people you would actually date in real life, or are these just like the protagonist boyfriend and you're like, oh yeah, that's a book boyfriend? Or are you meaning like, that's my boyfriend? I just have never got the whole book boyfriend thing. I tried. I feel like I've tried before to be like, oh yeah, he's my book boyfriend. And I just don't, like, I feel so weird. I don't know. Which, I have a boyfriend and we're like, and I know people that say that are like married and have boyfriends. It's not like a cheating thing. It's nothing crazy, but like, it's just weird. Like, I just can't do it. I don't know why. And I don't know that there's a guy that I've read about in a book. Oh, yes, yes, there is. Okay. Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan is the best book I've read in my whole life, probably. I don't think that I'll ever find anything as beautiful as that book, or anything that touches me as much as that book has. And that, okay, so her love interest in the book is probably the only guy that I would be like, yeah, he's not even a book boyfriend. He's like a book husband. I don't know. Have you guys even read that? Here's a quote from it. And this kills me. This book is so sad. Let me read you this quote. "It's just us again. Everything we built together lies on the other side of this door. The flourishing business, all of the friendships we fostered, even the children we brought into this world. None of it existed before this right here. The you and me of Josiah and Yaz." Guys, this is so beautiful. I don't know. I wrote a review a while back about it. Let's see. So here's my review. Electric, heart-wrenching, consuming. Think of a married couple, like a fairy tale love, that once in a lifetime love that you know will be forever. And then think about them ending, calling it quits and giving up what they had. That's Yasmin and Josiah. They were once husband and wife and now co-parent and co-business owners. This book is about two people who experience that once in a lifetime love, trying to navigate life going forward after extreme loss. I don't remember the last book that made me cry so much. This is one of my favorite reads of the year. It destroyed me. As a therapist, I love the mental health awareness and how the characters were able to grow by becoming more emotionally aware and working on communication skills. As a person, it was so, so, so difficult to read about a love like theirs ending. I don't know why, but I was so personally invested in the story that I could not talk about the book without crying when I was trying to explain it to my boyfriend or sister. Let's talk about the main characters real quick. They are so real. Everything about this book feels so authentic and personable. I want to know Yasmin. I want to be friends with her, and I want to be in her friend group. She was so strong and has put in so much work to rediscover herself after such tragic loss. She's iconic. And people can talk about book boyfriends all day, but Josiah is a book husband. He's such a good man who continues to be a great father and ex husband without saying anything negative about Yaz to anyone. I know that's the bare minimum, but he's just so pure and he keeps on loving her through it all. Okay, that was my review, and I haven't read this book. That's my review from April of last year. And reading that review just brings back all these feelings from that book. That book was so good, you guys. I cried through the whole thing. I'm pretty sure I cried on the first page before I even had like an emotional connection to the characters. It's just Kennedy Ryan has this way of writing that I just want to be like, I beg you, please do not make me feel anymore. I read Long Shot by her as well, and that's another great one that's very emotional and like she can't write a bad book. She can't write something that couldn't make me feel something. It's just insane. The talent that people have when they put words to paper and like the way that it resonates in us is insane. So, going back to book boyfriends, I don't think there's anybody that I could look at and be like, yeah, he's my book boyfriend, except for Josiah. Like, guys, the way this man was written in the book, even after their divorce, he continued to love and support and cherish her. And, like, it was just, oh, I can't, like, that, talking about unrealistic expectations, that is unrealistic expectations. Is there a man in the world that would be like that? I don't know. I really don't. But I hope for the sake of us all that there is because he's like a dream. Okay, I have to get off this. I'm just what I want to do right now is just go back and reread that book. It was so good. But talking about reading books, I am overwhelmed. I talked a little bit last episode about how many arcs, like putting arc request in and how to do it. Guys, I'm drowning. I I went on a binge for a while. Okay, I was off Instagram for a while. I was taking a little break and I took a week off of work. And when I got that week off of work, I literally was unstoppable. I was just like, my drive and my love for Bookstagram came back, and I was on it like 10 force. But now I'm at a point where I think that I overcommitted to things during that time that I didn't really understand that I was overcommitting to. Because the way that arcs work is you could sign up in advance for things, and then they'll tell you like later if you got approved. And that's where I am right now. I have so many books that I have to read, and I don't want to say I'm in a reading slump, but I'm kind of in like it's like the pressure of having to read everything is on me. And I'm halfway through like 10 books, and I don't remember the last time I finished a book. Actually, it's probably been a couple weeks, but I'm like maybe I'm close to finishing a couple, but not at the end, and that's so discouraging. It's just been a busy week. I've been finding like I don't know if this is everyone, but I think the stress of just the world is making it difficult to concentrate on fun things. And because it's hard to have a fun time when we're just like going through so much chaos in our lives. I did make time this week to go to a book fair kind of thing. It was, let me look what that was even called. It was called like Bookish Girl Day Out or something. I don't even remember the name of it. But this place near me is like a maybe a college warehouse. Like they sell like stuff for the college around. I don't even honestly know what they do. But they sell different things. They even sell like cute little Taylor Swift things and like other little bookmarks and stickers. Well, they kind of pair up with a local bookstore, and the two of them together set up and they do like merch. And I got the cutest little Valaris shirt. It says like something about art. I've worn it once. I haven't even read it, honestly. I just was here for the vibes of it. But I made it there yesterday. So this is crazy. This is what happened to me. I get there, I'm a little bit early, and it was supposed to start at 3, and I'd already had to be in town for like an appointment for something, so I was a little early. And I have decided this week that I need to like better monitor my sugar intake because I just feel like I just eat so many sweet things. And so I've been doing so great. Honestly, I've cut back a lot of sugar, and even in my coffee and stuff, I drink a lot of coffee, and I switched over to Javi, which is, I mean, it's pretty good so far. I got the iced white mocha one, and you just put a teaspoon, it's like coffee concentrate, and you just put a teaspoon in like milk or water and stir it up, and you have iced coffee in like 5 seconds. It's awesome. Um, this is not sponsored, but I was at the thing. I'm monitoring my sugar intake. I walked through the door. It just started. And right beside the door, they have 2 trays of cookies. And I literally couldn't have stopped myself if I tried. I looked down, I grab a cookie, I put it in my mouth, and I like feel my teeth come into close around the cookie. And then I think to myself, what the heck am I doing? I literally am trying, I've been doing so good all week, monitoring my sugar, not like mindlessly snacking, being more aware of things. And I just literally had my teeth imprint in this cookie. And I just opened my mouth and I didn't bite the cookie. Like the bite didn't happen. My teeth were on it. Like I was so close. So I just opened my mouth. The cookie's fully intact still. And I just hold it in my hand and I walk around the whole event because there was no bathroom or trash can and I didn't want to be rude, but like I literally couldn't eat this cookie. Not even like I didn't even want the cookie. I think it was just subconsciously my brain is just like, "Oh, look, free snacks. I like free snacks." And I grabbed it. Like I didn't even want it. I wasn't even hungry for it. I I don't know. It's one of those things when you have like a brain lapse. Anyways, I'm walking around this whole event. There's other girls there. And like, it's so fun to go to stuff like that because if they're standing there, they're like holding a book and they're like, oh, I haven't read this. I don't know if it'll be good. I'm just like, you should get it. It was really good. Like unsolicited advice. Guys, it's so fun. Like, and I'm not there like trying to be the main character, but also if someone there needs help, I'll give them a book rec. At the last one that I went to, it was through the same company, but in a different town. And I was waiting for my friend to show up before she got there. There was another girl, and she picked up When Grumpy Met Sunshine by Charlotte Stein. And I was like, she's kind of like talking to her friend, like, this one looks good. And the back sounds like something I would like, but I don't know if I'll get it. And so, you know me, like, I'm like, I have to step up and do something here. These people need help. So I walk over to them. Well, I'm already pretty close by. And I'm like, oh, it's really good. I've read it. You'll probably love it. And she was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's so good. Like, the banter was so good and like the story like it was closer to when I had read it, so I probably remembered it a little bit more, but I was like, yeah, you'll probably love it. And she bought it and she was so happy that I even said anything. She's like, thank you so much. Why does this remind me of this time? Okay, this is weird. Okay, so in situations like that I can talk to people and it's fine. There was a time I was in Half Price Books and I didn't have my glasses on and I was just like looking through the things. And without my glasses, I can see, but I see better closer up. And so I'm in the romance aisle, and there's another girl next to me. And I picked up a book, and she was like, "That one's really good. You probably would love it." And I was like, "Thank you," like because I do that for other people. So I was like, "That's so sweet that she did that. I love that." And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And like, I don't know why, but that day I just couldn't say anything. Like, I just didn't have it in me to like talk. I don't even know what was wrong with me. I was really struggling to see the books even. And so she was so sweet and she was so nice. And she started talking about something else too, but I was giving her the bare minimum. And I regret that now. I don't even know why I did that. It's not like a conscious thing. I think I was just like in a different town and I wasn't really focused and I was looking at the books on the shelf. And I really wish I would have been more engaged in the conversation. But she said something else. Oh, she had a book. And I was like, yeah, that one's good too. And so we're both like facing towards the shelf again. And she's like, I'm sorry I'm in the way, or I'm sorry I'm going slow. And I said, it's okay. I don't have my glasses, so I can't see anyway. So I'm going slow too. And she said, oh, you don't have your glasses? You're actually in the mystery aisle. Guys, that one was so good. I like the delivery of it. I'm not delivering it right. Let me try again. She was like, oh, in that case, you were not even in the romance. You're in the mystery. Like, I couldn't see, so she made a joke that it's not even what I think it is. Like, that was such a good joke. And that day, I don't even think I laughed very much at it, but like, I know in her mind, she probably goes back to that and is like, man, that was such a good one. Why did I get nothing from that? I really wish I would have gave her a bigger laugh. Like sometimes in life you regret things, and for me, that's probably one of the top five. Like, what was I doing that day? I I love engaging with other people. I just think honestly, I was like zoned out that day. I've talked to my boyfriend about this even. I've went back, like I think about this frequently because she gave me a really good joke that day, and I gave her nothing back, and that's rude. And I go back, like I mentioned it to him not long ago because he wasn't with me that day and I told him about it and I was like, yeah. And then she said, oh, you're actually in the mystery aisle. And I didn't, I was telling him about it and he was like, why didn't you laugh more? And I was like, I really don't know. Man, We're just all full of regrets, right? Guys, that actually haunts me. I feel like, imagine that was me though, and I thought that I made a good joke and nobody laughed. That's like, man. And she was so nice, and she was so talkative. I kind of wish I would have been like, when you're like, okay, when you're like, I don't know, I'm not good at making friends. Well, that's it. That's literally it. You're giving people nothing. That's me though. I'll be like, I'm so bad at making friends, and then I'm giving nothing. Do you know? I actually met. I don't know if she's listening to this. I actually met one of my friends at the bookstore. It was my friend Renee. I don't know if she's listening. I don't know if she even listened to the first episode. So Renee, if you hear this, let me know. I had went to the bookstore like a couple hours away from me. I was like having a rougher week, I think, and maybe I just wasn't feeling super myself. And I had got to a point where I was kind of like, I have friends, but I don't have like close friends. Like there's this desire as women where we want to be close to other women. And I think that I had got to a point where like I was in this group in my community of like other girls around my age, but they were like having babies and getting married and doing these things. And I'm just like, man, like it would be so nice to have like an actual friend that I could spend time with one on one and have fun. And so I thought that like earlier in the year. And, so I go to the bookstore this day. I drove a couple hours and I think I'm wearing like my pink fuzzy Crocs. And I think my hair is straightened, but it had been straightened like the day before. I literally was just like, I've got to go somewhere today and do something. So I get to the bookstore and it is Joseph Beth in Lexington, which I love it there. And I get to the bookstore, I'm looking around, and I get to the Sarah J. Maas aisle, and we're like looking at the books, and this girl walks up and she was like, "Oh, have you read that? Sarah J. Maas is the best." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I love her." And some other girls walked up and started talking too, and they were friends. And then the girl that originally walked up, she had some friends with her, and they walked up too. And my friend Renee was one of them. And so we were all talking and just chatting, and then it like, me, I had to plug my Insta. So I was like, well, if you guys want to like talk about books or anything, like here's my Insta. And Renee was already following me. First off, that's so crazy, but also maybe it's location based because we're like both in Kentucky, and maybe I tagged Kentucky on something. I really have never wondered too deeply about how she was already following me. But isn't that awesome? Like the way that like we think in our heads it's really hard to make friends, but then you can literally just go out and make friends. And we just like messaged after that day and was like, wouldn't it be fun if we went book shopping together? And we did, and we had coffee and lunch, and now we hang out like at least once a month. It used to be more. Thanks a lot, Renee, for getting a laugh. We hang out at least once a month, and we go to all kinds of book conventions together. And that just goes to show you, you really don't know what people will be in your life until you invest time and energy and honestly laugh at their jokes. So that's my life lesson of the day. I'm just thankful for this community as a whole. I feel like I talked about this last episode, but just being somewhere and being able to be involved and invested and have people give you back that same energy, like you love the same things. I'm also in Kentucky Bookstagrammer groups, like some other girls from around the state, and they're amazing and they really hype up like we're all so supportive in that group, and we all, it's just so awesome to be around women that lift up other women. So if you need that in your life, like make a friend at a bookstore or hit me up because I love to hype people up. I actually love to compliment bomb people. It's an issue I have. Also, I love to use emojis as punctuation. I figured that out this week. I was reading through an email I sent or like a message, and I would write a sentence and end it with a period, and below it, I would end the next one with an emoji. No period, no nothing. Do you guys do that? Anyways, that's it for this week's episode. I know we didn't talk about a lot. We kind of talked about the YA adult stuff. Tell me your thoughts on that. Message me, let me know, leave a comment. If you like what you're hearing, leave a review. I'm really hoping to do some co-hosted episodes going forward, and to do some author episodes going forward, and to talk about more specific topics. But thank you guys for being here, and I'll catch you next Saturday.